At Virgin, we believe that all businesses, no matter their size, no matter their sector, no matter where they're based in the world, should all be purposeful businesses. And as a brand, we strive every single day to ensure that our purpose stays at the heart of everything that we do. And that's why I'm really inspired to see the wonderful work of Virgin Media and what you guys are doing for your people, your customers, and the wider community across the UK. Your purpose is creating meaningful connections, and at the helm of this purpose is Jeff Dodds, who I'm speaking to today. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Virgin Media, and he's also the executive sponsor for Belonging and a brilliant champion of disability inclusion. So I'm really excited to speak with Jeff today as part of the Purposeful Leadership series that I'm doing. And that's where I speak to global leaders about the future of purpose-driven leadership. So thank you so much, Jeff, for joining me
today. You're welcome. Hey, well, look, if I need an agent, Holly, I'm definitely coming to you first. I should say, I'm not quite at the helm of it. We have around 12,000 people at the helm of our purposeful strategy, but I appreciate the sentiment, so thank you.
Well, that's great. I love the fact that nearly every single one of your people are really thinking about it.
Definitely are.
And I think that's why I just want to have this chat today to like pick your brain about purpose, pick your brain about Virgin Media specifically, but also just purposeful business as a whole as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just ask you a few questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
You're in charge, Holly, as always.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right. So what does purposeful business look like to you?
What does it look like to me? So I think it's every business leveraging their brand, their products, their people, and their money, let's be honest, to do something beyond simply trying to make money, to try and give something back to make a difference in the world. And I think how I describe that, Holly, is I don't know and I include myself in this, I don't know a single member of staff that jumps up in the morning and rushes into work to just make money for its shareholders. That they're not the things that people talk about. Yes, they want to perform well, they want to win in the marketplace, they want to be well remunerated, but the things in my experience that all of our people talk about are where they've made a difference to society more broadly, where they've had a positive impact on a customer, or where they've had a positive impact on a colleague. So for me, that's what being purposeful is all about.
Mm-hmm. And is that why you think purpose needs to be embedded right at the heart of a business?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure without one. I'm not sure how people show up every day knowing what's important and what's not important. And we've been on a bit of a journey in our business, Holly. So if you went back a few years, we had a purpose, and our purpose then was kind of make great things happen. And a lovely sentiment, like almost like a marketing line, a lovely line that people could use, but it didn't really help people to connect with something bigger. So a few years ago, probably about 2.5 years ago now, we changed that to build connections that really matter. And that purpose wasn't my purpose. It wasn't Lutz Schuler's purpose. It wasn't the board's purpose. It was one that was co-created with broad sections of our employee base, with our partners, with our customers. And it really, really connected with the business, because building connections is what we do. Whether they're physical connections, like building connections in the road to connect people, homes and businesses to great Wi-Fi, great broadband, but also building personal connections with customers, with each other, and with society more broadly. So building connections was very important, and that really matter. I have to say, as we've gone through this period of COVID and lockdown, and we've realised just how important what we provide, it's become a lifeline service, just how important that is. Our purpose that we didn't know when we created it 2.5 years ago has become a bit of a North Star, a kind of guiding light for how we manage through this really difficult time.
And I think that's so true. I think you've got to have a purpose that really fits with the business. And then it does mean that every single individual can really know that their decisions that they're making are making that difference, and they can sort of understand how their individual role can affect the positive change.
Yeah. 100%, and we're really lucky. So our group CEO at Virgin Media is a gentleman called Lutz Schuler, who you know, and Lutz has been on his own journey, which he talks about very openly, and having a personal purpose for him has allowed him to transform his career and to develop himself as a leader. over the last 15 or 20 or so years. So he's very purposeful, and he cares really deeply about purpose and the importance of purpose to the business. So I think when you've got people at the top of the organization who really understand it, and it's really impacted their lives, they obviously send a very powerful message down into the business, which is, the business has a purpose, but also have your own personal purpose. And if the two of those things can connect together, then magic happens.
Yeah, I love that idea. So you're talking about, Lutz, what do you think are the traits needed to be a purposeful leader?
Oh, what a great question. I think one of the common mistakes, and I don't know if you find this, Holly, but when you start talking about being purposeful or having a purpose, I think people assume it's at the expense of being performance driven and performance led. And I'm really, this for me is an and, not an or. So you don't have to be, if you choose to be purposeful, it means you don't take your foot off of performance in the business and driving for success in the business. It is an and. In fact, I would argue you're likely to be more performance focused and more performant if you're purposeful. So it's very much an and. So I think, what are the traits? So you can still be driven and performance focused. You need to have empathy. You definitely need to be inclusive, because if you look across our organization, there are lots of different people in the organization with lots of different perspectives, lots of different skill sets. So you need to be fully inclusive as a leader. You need to listen, and you need to create an environment of trust. And I think if you can, and I'm not sure any of those things I've just said are any different to what just being a good leader are, but I think if you have those traits, it sets you up for success in a purposeful business.
And what I love is that there's so many leaders across the Virgin companies that I absolutely believe have all of those traits, which is great. And actually not just leaders. I actually think for this to work, it's not just the leaders that need to be like everybody throughout the companies.
Yeah. Well, I have this theory, Holly, which I'll share with you. So my theory is, and I'm sure this is not unique to Virgin companies, but my theory is, in most organizations I've worked with in the past, or I observe, you have this kind of triangle, cultural triangle, which is culture is defined. Leaders make choices, and choices determine culture in a business. And therefore, the leader of the business or the board of the business really have a strong role in determining the culture of the organization. I think that triangle, in my experience, is inverted in a lot of Virgin businesses. And the reason I say that is when people come to join the organization, they come with a really predetermined view of what it means to work for a Virgin company, to be purpose-led, to be customer-centric, to be disruptive, to be a challenger business. So when they turn up in the organization, if they don't see those behaviors at the top, it doesn't feel right to them. And you have this groundswell of people in the organization that have already come with this predetermined set of values. So I have this theory that for a lot of Virgin businesses, that triangle is inverted. And actually, you often find some of the leaders who join the business who don't live up to those values, don't really fit or don't really enjoy it. So I think we have quite a unique position in that sense.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And the other great thing about people coming with all of those traits is that they actually have quite high expectations of what they want from us.
Huge.
Well.
Huge.
So it sort of keeps driving us forward to try and be the best that we can be.
Yeah, and they hold us to account. I mean, one of our values is straight up in the business, and it's in the vernacular. So there isn't a day goes by where that terminology isn't used in the business, but very often it's used by people in the organization talking to leaders of the business to say, we need you to be a bit more straight up about this topic, or just be straight up with us. What's the plans for this? So I absolutely think that's right. I think the leaders in our business are held to account by our values and our culture.
And actually, you've always said that people judge a business by its actions and not its words.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way business can find its purpose and really find a way to make a genuine contribution to society?
Yeah, well, I say that because for most of my childhood, my dad used to say it to me, but he used to say the phrase, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are deafening me. And so I kind of grew up with that phrase. And I really believe that. I believe that there are a lot of organizations and a lot of businesses that have a narrative. And it's the narrative they use through social media, they use through their advertising, through their marketing to tell people who they are. But in terms of enacting against that narrative, when you get beneath the surface, it just doesn't connect. It doesn't fit. What you get is not what they say. And I think what happens in that instance is you start to break down trust with your customers, with your employees, more broadly with government, with stakeholders. So for me, that's so important. That authenticity part is so important, that if you want to make a real difference, you have to be able to say who you are, to say who you're not, to put your hands up if you make mistakes. But also, that doesn't stop you from being proud of some of your successes. But you absolutely need to live up to your narrative.
Purpose statements are really important to help people drive towards their goals.
Yep.
Do you have a personal purpose statement? And if you do, I'd love to know it. And I'd also love to know the Virgin Media purpose statement and why.
Yeah. So the Virgin Media one, let's start with that. So Virgin Media has a purpose, which is to build connections that really matter. And the lovely thing, and that was created not just by the leadership of the business, it was created by employees of the business, so our people, by our customers, by our stakeholders, by our partners. So it really is all encompassing in that sense. And the lovely thing about the purpose for me is it's very practical. Building connections in our world is a very practical thing. So we've committed to connect the whole country where we have a network to gigabit services by the end of this year. Very practical, building connections. But beyond that, when you think about the things that we're passionate and focused on outside of our kind of core broadband or TV or mobile business, it's about connecting people, and it's about connecting society and connecting communities. So I think the purpose statement for the business works beautifully. In terms of my own personal purpose, it's changed over the years, Holly, and it might sound a little bit soundbitey, and it's not intended to, but mine is to realize my own potential by helping other people to realize theirs. And that's how I think as I get older and more experienced as a leader, I take more and more pride in looking at the people I've been working with and part of my team, seeing them develop, and in some way as a leader trying to help unlock their potential or to help them realize how far they can go. So that's my personal statement, which I think links quite nicely to the business one.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think you're so right about purpose being like evolutionary. Like, it doesn't have to be set.
Yeah.
And I think that's what companies also have to remember is as businesses grow, as you grow individually, as you start changing careers, or as a business starts doing your thing, don't be just set in one way. Make sure you reiterate over the years as well.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
What's been your proudest moment when it comes to your purpose journey?
Well, there's loads of individuals I can look at, whether they are formerly people I've mentored or people I've worked with, or just people that have been part of my team or people I've observed through the business, where I can see their development and see their growth. And if I can think back to maybe a conversation we've had or a piece of work we've done together where I may in some small way have helped influence their development, that makes me incredibly proud. But I think at a business level, I think I would point to a few things. So, and we're not out of it yet, of course, but how we responded as a business to COVID, I'm incredibly proud of. So how we responded so quickly to recognize the importance of our services. So to give people more data, more content, more access through that really troubling and difficult first period of COVID, and how we've maintained our momentum in that space. That would be one. And then I look at the things like we launched in partnership with Scope, I think it was about 2 years ago, a program called Work With Me, which was aimed at supporting 1 million disabled people in this country and their friends and their families in order to get the skills and the experience they needed to gain employment. So 1 million disabled people in the UK, capable of working, wanted to work, but just couldn't find employment. And was delighted when last year we announced that we had supported over 1 million disabled people with the skills they needed to gain employment in the UK. So that was something I'm incredibly proud of. And then I think, as I sit here now, and we're recording this, I think on the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd a year ago today, if I think about the last year in our business, we launched a year ago our belonging strategy and our belonging collective. So 5 networks across the organisation coming together to try and drive change around inclusion in the business. And we are so far from perfect, and there is so much more we have to do in our organization. But you know what? We've made incredible strides over the last 12 months in focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion in our business. So I think there'd be three of the things I'd pick out.
And I've been involved in a few of those things, and I want to reiterate that I think they are fantastic. And especially we have the same sort of thing at Virgin Management, where we have our D&I group. And they really are driving change, and I just think it's so great to also have lots of people within your business being part of that movement. It's not just someone at the top like talking down to people, it's actually your whole business part of the movement.
And do you know what I love? We had a belonging board meeting early this week or late last week, but we had a belonging board meeting, and that's a meeting of, I chair that on behalf of the business, and it's a meeting of the networks who come together. We have networks across gender, ethnicity, LGBTQIA+. We have neurodiversity and disability networks in our business. They're all represented there. There's a central team that work on DEI that are represented there. And we came together and had a meeting, and we kind of reflected back on the 12 months since the belonging strategy started. And for a very short period of time, we reflected on how far we'd come and some of the changes we'd made that were being really positively received by the business. But for 90% of the meeting, it was actually quite a challenging meeting about changes we needed to make to accelerate our progress. And as I came off the call, I just loved the fact that in that environment, as difficult as any meeting around commercial targets or strategy that I'd ever been in, a group of people saying, we're not going fast enough and this isn't good enough. Even though we've made incredible progress from our starting point, there was absolutely no desire to slow that progress down. So, you know, that really, really enthuses me.
Yeah, and me too. And you've spoken about your scope partnership, but you've got a new 5-year sustainability strategy, which I just think is fantastic. Can you please elaborate on it for us and about how the sort of meaningful connections plan is coming about at Virgin Media?
Yeah, and that is, you're right. So we launched a new 5-year sustainability plan, which we call our Meaningful Connections Plan. And I take very little credit for it. It's a brilliant team in the business that pulled the strategy together, which we all are really passionate about and fully supportive of. But I would say some of the key tenets of it. One is to create hundreds of employment opportunities from people from underrepresented groups or communities. So that's one part of it. And I think that links in very directly to our belonging strategy. I think hot off the back of our trying to support 1 million disabled people into the workplace, we've actually come up with a 5-year plan to support 1.5 million meaningful connections. And that for us is that we would describe a meaningful connection as either a physical or a digital connection for somebody that is currently exposed to the feeling of loneliness. So that is how we would describe it. So, you know, if we could support and help to create 1.5 million more meaningful connections out there, I mean, that would be life-changing for a very, very large group of people. So the business has got very excited about this. And to kick it off, we've started a partnership with Carers UK. What we realized is that the number of people who are carers for family members or for friends, or not always for friends, but for other members of the community they live in, but don't consider themselves to be carers, but play an absolutely critical role in somebody's life, is vast. It's absolutely vast, massively understated. So we're going to work really closely with Carers UK to make sure that we help to support them, to support carers, to give them the support they need, but to help build those connections. And the final thing I would point to, well, a couple of things: volunteering days. So I haven't done the maths, Ollie, but we used to give a day's volunteering to every member of our staff, which is about 12,000 members of staff at Virgin Media. And we increased that through the Meaningful Connections plan to 5 days volunteering every year. So when you literally add those days up across 12,000 employees, the scale of impact we could have across the business could be really meaningful. And of course, I know you're passionate about sustainability and environmental sustainability. So committing to be net zero by 2025 and zero waste by 2025. feel like they're absolute necessary in the current climate. So they're some of the key parts of it.
Net zero by 2025, that's coming around soon.
I know.
How are you doing on that journey?
Well, so we're on it. We have a complex business. We have a lot of electrical product out there. We have a lot of vans out with people going into customers' homes to install equipment or to service equipment every day. Big contact centres, lots of offices in the UK. So we have many areas as we look at our strategy that we have to change in order to hit that target. But there's an absolute, I was going to say willingness, and that's the wrong word. There's an absolute desire to make sure that we've put that goal out there and we will not miss it. So in every facet of our business where we can make a difference, the teams are now looking at what we can do differently over the next 4 years, and not waiting, because you're absolutely right. 2025 is just around the corner. So if we want to hit that target, we have to be making the changes today, not in 2024. Yeah.
Well, brilliant work. I just think, having that thing to drive towards is absolutely vital. And it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do, but I think it helps everybody, and again, throughout the whole business, to try and work out how they can make a difference when it comes to sustainability. Diversity inclusion is something that you're very passionate about. Yeah. I know. And I'm just wondering what that means to you. Because I know a lot of other areas of diversity inclusion are things that you can see, whereas disability is something that I find is obviously a very difficult one, because a lot of the times you can't see if somebody is disabled or not. That makes it quite difficult for disabled people to hear the things that they actually need.
So I think I'm passionate about inclusion and belonging in all its forms. I think the reason I have a particular focus on disability, and I actually am lucky enough to sit on the non-advisory board for an organisation called the Valuable 500, which Virgin is a member of, which is focused on business and ensuring that business focuses on disability within its organisation to drive progress. I was delighted to see that Caroline Casey and the Valuable 500 was set up with trying to get 500 global organisations to focus on disability within their organisations, and they hit the 500 mark just last week in terms of 500 huge global organisations. So very proud of what that business is doing. So I've had some personal experience of disability, whether it's temporary disability for myself, or whether it's people I know who are disabled, and some of the hurdles and the discrimination they faced over the years. So I have personal experience of it, and you're absolutely right. If we believe the numbers, between 15 and 20% of the UK are disabled. Disability is not necessarily something you're born with, although people often think it is. It's something you can acquire through your lifetime, and it's not always permanent. Sometimes it's temporary. So it's highly complex. But if the numbers are right, then 15 to 20% of our customer base and the people we serve, and 15 to 20% potentially of our employee base, are also disabled. And therefore, if we're not taking it seriously and we're not really understanding it, then we are absolutely underserving a very large group of our customers or our people. And that's why I take it really seriously. And you're so right. It's one of those areas of inclusion where it's very complex, often invisible, and therefore people tend to shy away from having conversations around it. Very nervous they'll get the language wrong, very nervous to ask people if they need reasonable adjustment or if they can support people differently. It's a topic that people shy away from. And I have a really simple personal philosophy, which is, if you can't talk about it, you'll never make any positive change. So if it's an area that you just decide not to talk about, then you won't make a positive difference. So my encouragement in the business is for all of these areas, if your intent is positive and it's done sensitively, then there's no area you can't have a conversation about if the intent is to change something for the better, for a positive outcome. So we've been on this journey around disability for some time, since we started partnering with Scope, since we launched Work With Me, since we partnered with the Valuable 500 a couple of years ago. And I really feel there's a there's a real momentum behind disability inclusion, not just in the UK but globally.
I completely agree with you, and I think you've explained that so well, so thank you very much.